maybe we're being recorded now. Let me see if I can make this the webcam always in front. There we go. All right. We'll turn to our... I need to tell you that we have very interesting weather. That's the big topic. We have a daughter in Provo at BYU. She's a freshman, and she's been sitting on the lawn picking on her old guitar. And we have, I don't know, Nicole, you help me. We have at least a foot of snow, maybe a little bit more, and our temperature is 22 below zero this morning, and we are in Kentucky. It's not something that we're used to here, but it's beautiful as long as you're inside and warm. I was at the Senate this morning, the Kentucky State Senate, and for an hour they talked about the weather. And one side thought they shouldn't have come in. The other side said, we've got a good work ethic, we're being paid, so we'll be in. And after they discussed that for an hour, hour and a half, they quickly passed 4 bills unanimously that were good bills. So the weather is a hot topic for us back here, and I understand that we're kind of in the national news because of our sweet winter weather. Well, today we're gonna sled. Nicola's been sledding. Yes, we had some people asking, where do we sled? And some folks in our ward said, well, you can come and sled at our house. It's almost straight down. There's a turn in the road. There are huge boulders, and you can drop off a cliff, and the river's at the bottom. So come on over and wear a helmet. So yes, in Utah, that's what our kids that it's in Utah are saying, that it's in the 50s and 60s, and we should go up to that temperature, maybe to the 40s tomorrow, and it should rain bullets. And that's a big worry because the ground is frozen and they're expecting flooding. So at the Senate they were talking, yes, we have the freezing temperatures, and now we're going to have the flooding, and the next day is going to be the flies, and then the fleas, and then the boils, and then the frogs. And we have one senator, he looks like Moses, so they're asking him to try to solve our problem. It was pretty fun there, and it's pretty nice to have good old Utah/Idaho/Michigan weather. And now we're going to talk about the string family. How many of you own and or play a string instrument? I know somebody owns a cello and is thinking of learning it. Spencer does, looks like. Tell me who Zenith is. Haley. Oh, I own a guitar. Good for you. Well, we're going to learn about all kinds of string instruments today. And we're going to learn that each one is different, has a divine nature and destiny, and you know where that comes from. A violin and a ukulele and a lap harp. We have 3 violins. Look at all this. Oh, I wish we were all together. We could have brought our instruments and had a little jam session. That would have been super. Let's see. Let's move to the next one. Our concept. Each member of the string family has a unique name and sound. Sabrina's brother. I'm going to write Sabrina down. Thank you. All these code words. The principle is we can live our lives so that we can bring out beautiful music in others. Now, you can always divide things into categories. And the string family can be grouped into several kinds of categories. The first one is the construction of the instrument. Now, there's a lute and a harp and a zither. And there's one instrument called a lute and one called a harp and one called a zither. But we're talking now using these words to describe categories of instruments. There's a lute category, and they're built like a lute. There's a harp category, and there's a zither category. And let's see what they are. Here's the lute. Oh, you can't see anything? Let me see. I think I might leave and come back. Okay, that's a good idea. I do want you to be able to see these pictures. The first category of construction for a string instrument is the lute. Lute instruments have a long neck, and they have a boat, which is the bottom part where the strings are attached. Here we have a zaz. It's a Turkish instrument. The violin, all of those violin type instruments, the lute type instruments, the guitar are all in the lute family because of the way they're constructed. Now the harp family, they have a frame around the outside and strings that go from one side of the frame to the other. like these things. You see David's harp, you see a double harp, you see another harp. And there are foreign instruments that are also have a frame around the outside and strings that go across the middle. Those are in the harp category. The next category is the zither category. Now, the zither category, what you'd think it's kind of like a harp, except it has a whole body. It's got a back and sides. So you see these foreign instruments, the zimbalon and the gaichin. We see a piano, and at the top you see an auto harp. Yes, a piano. Now, there are some people who will put a piano in the percussion category because they have hammers that pound on those strings. It can go ahead and be in percussion and in the string category. It works for both, because we're going to see how string instruments are categorized in different ways. But this is one way. So if you're going to build something, you would think, I'm going to build a zither. That's going to take a lot more material because I got to have a back and sides. Or I could do a harp that takes less material, but the frame has got to be pretty strong because you tighten those strings up, and if it's a little bit flat, you tighten them up even a little bit more. Okay, now you can also group the string family the way the instrument is played. Some instruments are plucked, some are bowed, and some are struck. Some are all three, and we'll see that today. Played by plucking. You know what you use. You use your fingers, or you can use a pick, which is really called a plectra. Here are some instruments that are plucked. You can see that arch lute in the middle, and the harp and the banjo. So now we've got instruments. Now we've got them put into the same category because of the way they're played. Some instruments are bowed. It uses a stick-slip phenomena. You pull a bow, you put rosin on those horsehair strings, and it ruffles up the edges, and the little cilia that pokes up, you ruffle that up, and then as you pull that bow across the string, it sticks and then lets go, and sticks and lets go, and it does that real fast. So that's what makes the sound. And it's been doing that for hundreds and thousands of years. You can see some of these instruments are not new, but all the instruments I'm showing you here today are played currently. Let's see. The next one is, you know what? I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to show you how you can bow a piano. You could say a piano is a bowed instrument. Let's see if I can find it. I'm going to have to move this. Here we go. Here's a bowed piano. Move over a little bit. Can you all see this well enough? There's the bowing. They're using the same kind of strings you would on a violin or a bass. Yeah, the piano guys have done just about everything cool on pianos and cellos, haven't they? So here, they're plucking it, they're striking it, and now they're bowing it. Actually, they're doing music. There's written music for this kind of a song that requires this many players. Now I'd like to show you a fretless guitar. There's some guitars that people have bowed. And here's one. It doesn't have the frets on it like the guitar that you have, perhaps. Is that bad? Is that better? The low notes seem to be really louder than the others. Oh, I was just saying that piece of music played on the piano was written music. That was an actual composition that required that many people to pull it off. So they were not just improvising, they were actually doing what they were supposed to do. If you're going to do this on your own instruments, you might ask which kind of strings you should have on your guitar and which ones you should have on your bow, so that you don't do damage to your instrument. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Now here are instruments that are struck. You can see a piano there. And this is a hammer dulcimer. I don't know if anyone back there has a dulcimer. It's a native Kentucky instrument, and it is done by plucking. You push the strings down this way and pluck. It lays on your lap, and we'll see a picture of it in a minute. This is a hammer dulcimer from Europe, and I think you should see that this hammer dulcimer play Irish washerwoman with a lot of different hammers. I'll show you the real hammers at the end, but they'll play these with all kinds of different, here's spoons. Can you hear it? These are Legos. Now, this next one is my favorite. He's going to use his fingers. About ping pong paddles. How about Kentucky's favorite drink? Non-alcoholic. Mountain Dew, unfortunately. Now let's see. We're going to go here near the end. Let's see if he'll pull out toothbrushes. You just got to really know how to play it, huh? I want you to see the real hammers. In just a minute, you'll see the real hammer dulcimer instrument hammers. And they are called hammers. No, that's not them. Oh, he's good. We have those instruments all over. We have played with many a hammer dulcimer in our day when we have done the picking and grinning. It's pretty amazing. Now, what makes the right pitch? How do you make the string make the right sound, the right note that you want to play? There are 3 ways you can do that. Tighten or loosen. Tightness. Very good. Very good. Now, how about the length of the string? You make it tighter or looser. That's how you change the pitch on your instruments, isn't it? But if you're going to build an instrument, these are the three things that you look at. One is the length of the string. And you tell me, the longer the string, the what? Higher or lower? That's right. If it's longer, it's lower. The tension of the string is what you've already mentioned, and that is the tightness of it. The tighter the string, the higher or lower. You're going to crank that thing a little tighter, you're going to make it higher. You're right. Now, the one you might not have thought of is the linear density of the string. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Well, actually, with all of them. Go. I want you to go to the next one. There we go. You want to fix the pitch, you change the length, you change the density, you change the tension. You've already said the longer the string, the lower the tone. What type of material it is made of? Yes, that's good. There's steel, there's catgut, there's plastic. Depends on the expense of the instrument that you have. And it doesn't make as much difference on the pitch because you can tighten it or thicken it or lengthen it or not. But it does make a difference in what is catgut. It's made of the intestines of sheep and goats, not really cats. Cat comes from cattle, and cattle used to include all of those farm animals. And there are strings, violin strings on a child's instrument that will be made of catgut because it's easier on their fingers. That's what that is. Okay, here we go. Less tension lowers the pitch, higher the tension, higher the pitch. Now the linear density means, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here, Abigail. I'm going to write your name down. Okay, linear density means how thick is the string? How thick is it? Two strings of equal length and equal tension, but the thicker the string, the lower the pitch. Now, I should take you into my big bass. Maybe I will. Let me see if I can. If you've seen, we've got quite a few little instruments in here. This is our bluegrass room. So we have a bass. Maybe if I move back, you can see it better. Maybe I should turn the light on. So we have a bass in that corner, and those strings are thick. And if you practice that bass for very long, not only will you have blisters, you will have a very tired hand. There's the guitars, there's a mandolin, there's a little ukulele there, another guitar in the corner, and a lot of our instruments are off to college and in the homes of our kids. But the thickness of the string makes as big a difference as the length and the tension. Now, you already suggested how to tune an instrument. You change the length of the string, or do you change the tension of the string, or do you change the density of the string? What do you think? Tension, tension, tension. Those are good answers. Whoops, let's go down to the next one. Oh, I should tell you, now when you play a guitar and you want to change the pitch, you put your finger on it, or a violin, you put your finger on it, and that kind of changes the length of the string, doesn't it? And it puts you into another note. The lower strings on our guitars are thicker than the others. You are right. That way you don't have to tighten them, loosen them up so much that they kind of drag. Wow, I'm remaining with a lot of those basses. I love orchestras that have a lot of string basses myself. Let's see. We're going to now you know how string instruments are categorized, either by, what are the two ways you categorize instruments? String instruments. Can you remember? A girl is 4 feet tall playing it. Wow. Who can remember how you categorize instruments? By the way they're played, that is right. What's the other way to categorize them? Let's go back up and see if you can, by their construction. And the three how they're made, that's right. Isn't it string and wind instruments? Well, there are wind instruments, and there are percussion instruments, and there are brass instruments. And today we're talking about string. Another day we'll talk about those other instruments. Those are awesome as well. But today it's string. So there's the construction is, can you remember the three kinds of construction? I know we've only talked about it once. It'll be hard to remember it all unless you're taking a few notes. This PowerPoint, though, is on the module, so you can go look at this again. There's the lute, the harp, and the zither. Now we'll go back down. We know about strings now. I want to see if you can name the categories of these instruments. What we have here is a little zither. And it really is a zither. It's a small lap instrument. Let's see. I think we're going to go... How did we get two of these here? And watch a little group of zithers right here. They make it look easy, don't they? That's okay, Emmeline. There you go. Now you can see perhaps on this slideshow, this mother is playing a zither. It's a parlor instrument. You play it with just a small group of people. Now they put two or three together with a guitar, a special kind of guitar, and they have like a young men, young women activity right there in their little pub, which isn't what we think of as a pub, but what they think of as a pub. Very beautiful. Now, this instrument in the middle, of course, you know what it is. It does. It has a very mellow tone, doesn't it? Probably the strings are catgut. That's what gives that mellow tone. This man is playing an arch lute, meaning the king of lutes. An arch is the top part. An archangel is the top angel. And here we have an arch lute. The top is bent back usually. Now, I'm going to ask you, which family is this instrument in? If we are categorizing it by construction. A lute, that is right. If we're categorizing this by how it's played, how would we categorize it? What are the choices on the playing categories? Plucked. Haley, you are right. As zither, it is a zither, and the zither is a category of construction. And so you're right, it's in the zither category, but the category by how it's played would be plucked. You are right. Okay, here we have three more instruments. You know the names of these three. If you can, type me the name of one of them and type the categories that one is in. For example, we could do that. I picked the harp. It's in the harp category and it's plucked. The bass, it's bowed and it's a lute. You are exactly right. Now, does anyone know what this one in the middle is?
Isn't it a dulcimer?
You are right. It is a dulcimer. You're exactly right. What categories would we put a dulcimer in? Lute, yes, and plucked. You know, you could say, you could say it does look like a lute. I think it would be a lute. I can see where you would say the neck is so short, you might want to put it in with a zither. Um, but for sure it's plucked. And this is the instrument that was actually created here in Kentucky because they didn't have access to luthiers to make fiddles, and this kind of an instrument they can make themselves. And so it's a native Kentucky poor man's instrument, but boy, they're beautiful. All right, let's look at the next three. I should tell you that harpist is a world famous harpist. She's the first African American harpist in the Boston Symphony. Now, what are these instruments? And what are their categories? A ukulele, which category?
Violin?
The ukulele?
No, guitar.
Okay, well, that's not a category, but the violin and the guitar are both in the same category as the ukulele. It's in the plucked category, yes. Now what about construction? The mandolin, lute, plucked. Very good. Ukulele, lute, plucked. Same. What is about this thing in the middle? I don't know if they bow any of these things. You know, people like the piano guys would do anything with any instrument, so you could say they're bowed. In the middle, you're right, it's in the harp. Oh, no, it's not the harp category even. It is an auto harp is the name, Haley. Put auto on the top. This man is one of the most famous auto harpists in the world. This is an auto harp, and which categories are they in? The zither, absolutely the zither. And what about how it's played? Plucked, you are right. Okay, here's another three instruments. Who can name all three of those? A banjo, lute, plucked. Excellent. Banjo, cello, but I don't know the middle one. Well, the middle one is really a lyre, L-Y-R-E. Can you tell me what the categories might be? And we'll talk about that other big one. A lyre is plucked. In which category? A harp. You're right. Now, it's not a cello. Look how big that is. We're going to listen to something. This fellow will tell you what this
My name is
instrument
Colin. I'm a curator at MIM, and this is the octabass.
Octabass.
The octabass was invented in 1850 by the famous French violin maker Jean-Baptiste Villon. The intent was to create an instrument that would add a low-end rumble to any large orchestra. Villon originally made 3 of these instruments, 2 of which still exist. There also exist 2 playable replicas, of which MIM has 1. So in order to play an instrument this size, the player just simply cannot use the normal technique, so it has to be built specially. The player stands on a platform and then pulls on levers, which are connected to a mechanism that pulls down the string on a fret to change the pitch of the string. Needless to say, nothing happens quickly on this instrument. Here we have the octabass bow. This is specially made for the octabass. It's quite a bit larger and shorter than a normal bass bow. It's made in the French style, which you would normally hold like so, but in this case it's so big and heavy, all I can do is hold on. The bow is made with a hardwood stick, an ebony frog, and leather grips, and lots of horsehair. The instrument is tuned 2 octaves below a cello. the lowest C note on it is at 16 hertz, which means it is actually below the frequency that humans can actually hear.
Now, before I let you hear an octabass and a bass play a duet, I'm going to tell you that one of these octabasses was used to do the introduction to Jaws, the movie Jaws. You know that drum, drum. That was done on an octabass. But let's listen to this for just a minute. A duet between an octabass and a bass. Here they're putting it together. Notice only 3 strings, and the linear density is huge on these strings. Look at the time. Isn't that gorgeous? But we got to go on. I cannot believe, where does the time go? Okay, there you go. Now you know what an octabass is. Here are 3 more instruments into categories. We probably will not have time to go through all of these. And here's your cello. Here's your cello. The one on the right is a cello. Now, the instrument that I want to finish on is called a viola da amore. It's a very, very special instrument, produced several hundred years ago, almost went out of fashion. And then Mozart and his father actually wrote viola da amore parts in their symphonies because they didn't want to lose this instrument. It has some unique parts to it. One is the scroll. Can you see the scroll at the top of this? Viola da amore? Let me show you it a little bit better here, right? There you go. 14 strings, you're right. What do you see on this, the top? It's not a scroll. What is that? And what is unique about it? It is a head. And what is it that's about this head? It's not like the front of a ship where she's looking out to the ocean, or a statue that she's looking far away. What do you see? She's blindfolded. Now, who knows what an amore is? This is a viola da amore. What does amore mean, you linguists? Spanish or Italian. It means love. So this is a viola of love. And because the head is blindfolded, it's unconditional love. Now, the next interesting thing about a viola da amore is the sound holes. Instead of being Fs, you can see that they are flaming swords. It could be passion, but it is definitely what it is. And now the thing that you already noticed, whoever said 14 strings, you can see here that there are 2 sets of strings. One is 7 strings on top. Now, a violin has 4. A viola da amore can even have more than 7 strings on top. It may have 8 or 9 strings on top. But you only play the ones on top. Those littler ones that are underneath, they go right through the bridge, are never touched by a bow. Now I'm going to let you see something cool. Let's see, here we go. We're going to find out how those ones underneath actually sound by watching this video that will explain sympathetic resonance. Sympathetic resonance. How can playing one thing cause another thing to sound that you're not
Fill the
touching.
wine glass about halfway with water. Dip your finger into the water, then run your finger along the rim of the glass. It may squeak at first, but adjust your speed and pressure and eventually it will start singing. The reason you hear the tone is because of vibrations in the glass. When I run my finger along the edge of the glass, my finger first pulls on the glass, warping it so slightly that you can't really see it. Then my finger slips free, allowing the glass to return to its original shape. This stick slip occurs hundreds of times very quickly, causing vibrations. If you look closely at the water while
Did you guys catch that? The stick slip method of vibration is exactly the same thing that happens with your bow.
the glass is making noise, you can see waves inside the water. That's a result of the vibrations. Another interesting phenomenon relating to singing glasses is sympathetic resonance. That's where the tone being created in one glass can make a second glass vibrate. To see this, you'll need two glasses filled with water so they make pretty much the same tone. Place the two glasses close together. Put a piece of straw onto the second glass. Now make the first glass sing and you'll see the straw move. Because both glasses have the same tone, the vibrations from one glass travel through the air and cause the second glass to vibrate as well. Those vibrations are what make the straw move. Ever heard of an opera singer that can shatter a glass just using their voice? Well, it's the same idea. It's still sympathetic resonance. They hit a tone that's the same vibration as the glass, causing it to vibrate. The difference is they hit such a high volume that the glass vibrates so tremendously that it actually cracks and shatters. Now, the only people I know to have actually filmed this are the Mythbusters, but their singer hit 105 decibels. That's roughly the same as a power saw or motorcycle engine. Since I can't hit the tone or the volume, I think I'm just going to stick with this. This has been
Yes, it actually works. I have two glasses, and I have made it work. For my little homeschool co-op here with those kids, that straw just bounced until it bounced right off. So absolutely it works. Now, because I can't believe we're running out of time, we're going to quickly go through these other slides. You can see here the strings. Sympathetic resonance or sympathetic vibrations is a harmonic phenomena where formerly passive strings respond to the vibrations of an active string that has a harmonic likeness to it. One string will not cause another string to vibrate unless they are the same or in perfect harmony. Sometimes a fifth pitch, fifth up, will also make the second one resonate. But one that's a fourth or third or kind of off will make no difference to the other one. Here are some instruments that have sympathetic strings. These are commonly used today in those countries. Beautiful instruments, but they've been around for thousands of years in other instruments. To me, it's miraculous that it was named sympathetic strings, and here's why. If I were to ask you, let me see what your chats are saying. If you sing the same note as a string, the string will ring even though you're not touching it. You are exactly right, and that is the same thing, sympathetic resonance. If we were to extract a gospel principle out of this, we'd need to know the definition of sympathy and the definition of to be sympathetic. Okay, a feeling of pity or sorrow for the distress of another. Now I'm going to tell you two stories. These are true stories. One is a girl named Charlene. This was out of the New Era a few years ago. She suffered severe brain damage at birth. She looks and acts differently than other children. Now she's a teenager and has learned to do many things like read and write. But although she has desperately wanted and needed friendship, she has grown up without a single friend outside of her small family. Not one girl her age pays any attention to her in her ward. A letter from her father to the church headquarters revealed how sorrowfully and how heartbreaking it is to watch his lonely child, who for years cannot understand why no one will associate with her. Now, how do you feel? Do you feel sympathy for this young girl who's a little different, but has no friends?
Yes.
Do you think her parents want you to feel pity and sorrow for her?
No.
Why? Emmeline.
I'm just thinking that they might be saying to you that you should treasure relationships. Like, people might be different and people don't like different, and they say, oh, they're different, all of us are the same, so we can team up against them and make their life miserable. And they were basically saying that if you see a person that's different than you, don't make their, if you have any comments, don't make their life miserable, keep them to yourself.
There you go. Now, look at the definition of Noah Webster's dictionary. To be sympathetic, to have a sympathetic feeling means to understand or share the feelings of another person. Now, how is that different than feeling sorrow or pity? Just feeling sorrow, I'm just so sorry for her. How is it different to understand and share their feelings? I have to pull this over.
That we have kind of experienced something similar to whatever feeling she is feeling.
You are right. Let me tell you something I saw happen. In our ward, we have an extraordinary number of disabled youth and children. We have a 2-year-old that will never walk. The most he can do with one arm is do this. Perfectly normal brain. His little head goes back and forth. He's learning to talk. We had an argument about whether it was a butterfly or a hummingbird. Sweet little boy, but this is the only movement. We have another boy in our ward who is maybe 30, and he has the mentality of about an 8-year-old. He has one crippled hand, and his other hand he can play any primary song in the book. He knows exactly how many verses, he knows exactly what the introduction should be, and he's never wrong. Well, he's blind, totally blind, and you can tell he's had multiple brain surgeries. Well, he is our primary pianist for junior primary. And at the primary program, we had him play the opening song with the kids. And so he's sitting up there. Now, little Lydia is 6. And she says hi to him. And Richie says, how are you? And they shouldn't have been talking. It was right during the beginning of the program. But he says, how old are you? And someone leaned over and said, Lydia, Richie's blind. He can't see your fingers. If you want to tell him how old you are, you'll have to tell him 6. And so she leaned over and she said, I am 6. And you are blind? And he said, yes. She got off her chair, came over and sat up on his lap because he's nearly 30. And from then on, she gave him a running narration of what was happening. It is time to sing. It is time to stand. Now we're to sit down. Now we fold our arms because it's the closing prayer. For the rest of the meeting. Now, would you say she is like an active string or a passive string? She is active. Now, Richie all he could do was sit there. He had to be helped to the piano. If no one says anything to Richie, he just sits there. In primary, if the primary president or someone says, now listen, you all need to listen and answer these questions, Richie will chime in, yes, you all need to listen and answer her questions. It is so awesome. But until he has a chance to participate, he doesn't participate. And that's the difference between sympathy and sympathetic. And when they named those strings sympathetic strings, I am just amazed that Heavenly Father has created a whole world where everything testifies of Him. Everything testifies of Him. I can't believe I've lived 50 years and never knew there was such a thing as an instrument with a sympathetic string that required the active string to be perfectly in tune or in perfect harmony in order to make those passive strings sound. And Mozart's father said, there is nothing as beautiful as sympathetic strings. They are like a beautiful, warm summer evening. That's the way he described it. Now, Elder Faust, I don't know if you remember him. He was in the first presidency for a long time. And he's a man who in General Conference still anguished over the fact that when he was a little boy, he knew his old grandmother needed wood carried in to build her fire. And he didn't do it. And then he saw her carrying it in herself. That's the tender heart of James E. Faust, that if 90 years later, he's still anguished over having done that to his grandmother. He said, can't we look past the canes and the wheelchairs and the braces and the crutches and the blindness and the physical deformities and the Down syndrome and all these other kinds of things? They're just ordinary human beings. And he doesn't say they want pity. He says they just want to be treated like ordinary people. They may appear different. They may move awkwardly or speak haltingly, but they have the same feelings. They laugh, they cry, they know discouragement and hope. They don't want to be shunned. They just want to be loved for what's inside. Now, that's what little Lydia did to Richie. And I typed it up in a little story, and I sent it to his parents who live in Utah. He's out here at what's called the Stewart Homeschool. It's like college for disabled kids. They have all kinds of kids there. And we go to their family program every May and see every kid there perform something, even if it's just standing on stage and shaking their head or, whatever they're able to do. It's a magnificent thing. And my favorite part of the program is the sad part. At the end, they have a slideshow, and there's probably 300 kids in this little school. And they have a slideshow for all the ones who have died that year. Because, they're older, handicapped people. There's not any little children. They are all probably 18 years and older. And they go to classes. They have semesters. Richie is in a piano class. They do all kinds of fun things. And of course, they never graduate. They just start another semester. But they treat them like they are regular college kids. And these kids think they are regular college kids. But then they watch these friends of theirs who have died during the year. And there's usually a dozen or so. And they put their name up on the screen. And everybody claps. And everybody shouts and cheers for them as if they were a basketball star. And I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life as the way those kids and those adults treat everyone there. There's a whole school of sympathetic strings and a whole lot of active, what we might call normal people who make them ring and brings out their music. So every person, every string family member is unique and has a beautiful sound. And every person is the same way. And you and I, in this class, and myself, we have to live our lives so that everyone can have their music brought out. So I would encourage you to take the opportunity to seek out those who are struggling, not just with physical handicaps, but with every kind of thing that may slow them down. Maybe it's just loneliness. If you're sympathetic with a lonely person, then you remember what it feels like to be lonely. If you're sympathetic with a depressed person, then maybe you can remember what it's like to feel down. When you see a person who doesn't play ball as well as you do, maybe you could remember when you didn't really play ball very well either. That's what it means to be sympathetic, not pity, not sorrow. So I hope that that's what you'll do. I know it will bring happiness to you. The email I got back from Richie's parents was incredible. And all I did was tell a story of 6-year-old Lydia. But I've seen it happen. So I hope that's what you will think of doing as you go through this lesson. Oh, I should tell you right quick, the homework assignment is to write a concrete poem. And this tells you how to write a concrete poem. It's in the module. And here's an example of concrete poem is where you write words. Let's just read it. Arranged on a page to help so that the picture on the page helps convey the meaning. This arrangement is just as important as the rhythm, the rhyme, and any other literary device you decide to use. The shape, the visual elements of the poem are as important as the text. This tells you how to write it. And then here's what it looks like. This is a famous poet back in the 1600s, the Baroque era, and he wrote Easter Wings. And this is beautiful. It is a poem about the atonement, and it's in the shape of wings. Now here are other examples. Let's see, here we go. You can see here other examples of kind of goofy ones. I like Herbert's better, but that shows my age. Here's one about a star. Here's one about an airplane. That's how you do a concrete poem. So I hope you have fun doing that concrete poem. If I can find my way back to what I was doing. Let's see.
Do we have to do it in like a picture thing, or
do.
just write a concrete poem?
You choose an instrument. Choose one of these string instruments. It can be a zither or a lute or a, what's the other one? Harp. Any one of those three. And you know, if you want to do it artistically without typing, that's fine, or you can type it. What you're going to do is draw a picture of the instrument, outline of the instrument. Then you're just going to make a list of words and phrases that you think of with that instrument. Then create your poem and then write it inside that outline. And yes, you can type it. I would love to see it. If you can scan it in and email it to me, I would love to see all of them, all the poems that you come up with any instrument you choose. So it would be one that you have feelings for. And I've gone over time again. Any questions on this? Okay, let me see if I can find how to turn off the QuickTime player. I don't want to quit, I just want to stop. Does anyone know how to do that? Oh, right here. There we go.